Welcome to episode 3 of the Sorce Law Podcast. As you know, my name is Joseph Sorce. I'm a personal injury attorney here on Long Island. And on today's episode, I brought a special guest with me. Her name is Lauren Murray. She's been an attorney for 10 years, and she specializes in wills and estate planning. So Lauren did myself and my wife's will a couple years ago. And I know the topic is taboo to a lot of young couples to worry about their wills and estate planning if they have small children. But Lauren's going to walk us through the process and tell us why it's so important to get this done early on. Additionally, if you're an older couple and you have adult children and grandkids, it's something you also need to do and worry about. So Lauren will tell us about how it may affect your life as well. So Lauren, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why it's so important for people to begin the estate planning pretty much as soon as they have children?
Well, thank you for having me, Joe. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure.
I've been with the firm Russo Karl Widmaier Cordano. We're located in Hauppauge. I've been there for 11 years. Okay. And I focus on estate planning and estate administration, as you know.
Yep.
I have 2 young sons. They're 5 and 3.5. And I know you have 2 young children as well.
Yeah, 4 and 2.
Yeah. So we're right in the thick of things.
We're in the weeds.
Yeah, we're in the weeds. And so what we like to say is everybody should have an estate plan from age 18 all the way to 118. Okay. You know, we cover the gamut, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about young families since we're both in the thick of things. And I think we probably have some young family listeners to the podcast or viewers, right?
Absolutely. And for everyone out there, Lauren did mine and my wife Lindsay's will and estate planning a couple of years ago. And I would refer her to anybody and everybody that may need estate work done. So reach out to her with any questions. But Lauren, take us through the process.
Okay, so the process. So we do a basic estate planning package usually for clients of our age all the way up to their, when they have children under the age of 18, we like to have a basic package. The will is bar none the most important thing for clients who have children under the age of 18 because you're going to appoint a guardian in the will. That's someone who's going to take care of your children in the event that you and your spouse go kaput. I always use the example you get hit by a bus. That's my favorite example. Yeah. But God forbid something happens to you and your spouse. Now you want to have someone appointed that you want to take care of your children. Otherwise, what happens is it goes to the court and the judge is in charge of picking that person.
It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. It's absolute disaster. Yep. And beyond that, the person who eventually becomes the guardian and the trustee of the funds any funds that you may leave for the children, that person now has to get approval for every single expenditure for the children, and it can be something as simple as school books, or it's a nightmare.
It must take forever.
It takes forever, and it's a practical and logistical nightmare on top of the challenge of just raising children, right?
Yeah.
So, and one of the most popular misconceptions that we see is if I say, okay, I'm married, why do I need a will? If I die, everything's just going to go to my husband.
Right.
Not true in the grand old state of New York.
Really? So what happens if you don't have a will? You're married. You figure your spouse will take care of everything in the event of or passing or whatever. Mm-hmm. What happens?
Unfortunately, what happens in New York State is that your spouse is entitled to the first $50,000 of your assets, and then half of the balance. The remaining half goes to your children, no matter if they're 6 months old, 15 years old, 35 years old. So if children are under the age of 18, that money has to be held in trust for their benefit. And that's where even if you're the surviving spouse, you're stuck going to court, asking the court to approve everyday expenses for your children. And it's just on top of grieving the loss of a loved one, you have this logistical nightmare that you're faced with. And unfortunately, we've seen our clients be faced with that on the estate end of things because we also manage people's estates for them. Okay. So when we haven't done the estate planning and we haven't done the will for clients and we are faced with a grieving spouse and we're doing the estate end, now they have to go to court and get all these different things in place that if they had just had a simple will saying everything goes to my spouse, could have been avoided.
Okay. So if they have and the will itself, is there different types of wills or generally for people like our age, is it standard as to what's in it, and is it really just based on assets and kids? Yeah,
a lot of it depends. It's the famous lawyer answer. Right. It depends, right?
Very fact specific.
Yeah. So we have certain provisions that we like to include in every will, such as your executor won't have to post a bond. That can be a nightmare if you have to get bonded. Okay. And so we put that in. We put a special provision in for who you're going to appoint as the guardian, who you want as the trustee. It can be two separate roles. Guardians are charged with custody of the children, whereas the trustee is managing the funds for the children. And so sometimes it's not always the same person. And we really try to look at a couple's, assets, and we ask them for a whole bunch of information, which can seem overwhelming at first, but the more information we have, the better we're able to tailor a plan. And a lot of times what people don't realize is that if you have money in the bank and you have a savings account, you can have what's called an ITF designation on that savings account. That money goes outside of the will. So if you have an ITF designation account and designation, and you might have done it years ago, and you might have your mom as your beneficiary, that money's going to your mom. It's not going to your wife or your husband kids in your will, or your kids in your will.
That creates an interesting fight between the in-laws and
Absolutely right. So what we try to do is kind of come up with a comprehensive plan, and we tailor all of the beneficiary forms to the will. We can coordinate them. We can say that if you don't want your kid getting money at 18, they're going to get a third of the money at age 21, a third at age 25, a third at age 30.
So you could specify it however you want.
Absolutely.
To the age, the amount of money, the assets, everything.
Right.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah. So if someone were to retain you, is it upfront hourly? Is it a retainer agreement? Is it a free consultation? How does it work?
That's right. Thank you, Joe. We do free consultations, especially for viewers of the podcast.
Oh, excellent.
We'll be willing to extend a free consultation. And in that free consultation, that's where we can really assess the level of complexity. Generally, we work with a flat fee arrangement. We try to be very reasonable, especially for someone like me or you with a young family and the cost of childcare and everything else. The last thing you want to do is spend money on a will, right? But it's just catastrophic if you don't have one. So it's kind of like life insurance, but making sure that you have all your ducks in a row. And that's why we try to be very fair, especially, like I said, with young families.
Yeah, more than fair. Lauren and her firm are more than fair in that sense. So what else is in the packet? So we went through the will. What other documents are there that viewers should be aware of?
So the main three we call advanced directives are a power of attorney, and then a healthcare proxy and living will. So a power of attorney is a financial advance directive or legal. If you're buying a house, you can give your agent the authority to sign the deed for you. If you can't get to the bank, your agent can go for you. Your agent can pay your bills. So it's important to have an agent appointed. Basically, we modify our power of attorney to give the kitchen sink worth of powers, so someone could step into your shoes and do anything financial or legal that you would need to do.
That's great.
That's a big one, yeah.
Is it generally the spouse of the person that acts as the agent?
Generally,
for the most part?
Yeah, generally, and then we usually recommend appointing a backup, and that is valid during your lifetime. So once you die, that's when your will takes over, but during your lifetime, God forbid, someone's in the hospital for an extended stay or overseas on business, it allows an agent to just step in your shoes and take care of business for you.
They could do everything.
Right.
And the other thing was what was the healthcare proxy?
Very good. Yeah, the healthcare proxy and living will. Those are medical advance directives. So in New York State, you can appoint an agent to voice your medical wishes if you are incapacitated to speak to the doctor. You're unable to communicate with the doctor. So the healthcare proxy, you appoint an agent and generally a backup, someone who can speak for you, someone who knows your wishes for end-of-life care, whether it's, be kept alive at all costs. I always say I have family members who would want to be cryogenically frozen, and that's kind of the opposite of mainstream. What we see is most people would want to be kind of kept pain-free, but not artificial measures to prolong their life if there's no hope of recovery. So the healthcare proxy also has important HIPAA language that allows your agent to speak to your doctor on your behalf. So it's really, really important form. And then the living will kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's a declaration of your end-of-life wishes for medical care. And it's kind of like an added buffer for wishes that you want in your healthcare proxy. We try to avoid any hospital hallway fights, between loved ones. So
those get hairy.
Yeah.
So is that the general package for a younger couple with small kids? Right,
absolutely. And then sometimes, that's what we consider our basic package. We do trusts. Trusts are a little bit more sophisticated in terms of planning, but when there's, if you're a business owner or a solo practitioner, or you have property in New York State and you have a cabin in the Poconos or a condo in Florida, you want to make sure you have a trust because you can fund the property into the trust, and then you avoid the whole probate process, which is when someone dies and the will has to go through court.
Okay.
A trust can make everything much more streamlined and much easier to administer.
More efficient.
Right, more efficient.
And what could go in the trust? Is it just property, like you said, like real estate, or is it money? Is it things of value, watches, jewelry?
Sure, it depends. Again, famous answer. But generally, with younger people, we see a revocable living trust is the most common type of trust for younger people. And pretty much anything can go into that type of trust. Usually we see anything besides, we say, non-retirement assets. We don't want retirement assets going in the trust,
right.
but any type of bank account, any stocks, any bonds, any properties can all be titled in the name of the trust, and it just makes everything a much smoother disposition. So
that's great.
And then, like I said, if you own property in multiple states, you're not doing multiple court proceedings in Pennsylvania and Florida and so forth.
So if you live in New York, you unfortunately pass in New York, you have this trust in New York, but you do own a house in Florida, it would still run through the New York court system?
Right.
Oh,
it's tricky the way it works because they make you do what's called an ancillary probate, and you have to do one in New York and one in Florida. So if you have the trust and everything is funded in the trust, you avoid that altogether.
Oh, so that's great.
Right.
And that's something you guys handle as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, someone comes to you for a consultation. How long is a consultation? Is it an hour? Is it 3 hours? Like, generally, give us a ballpark.
We try to keep it to an hour only because we talk about a lot of complicated topics, and sometimes you can see the client's eyes start to glaze over.
Yeah.
So we try to keep it to an hour. But that being said, as part of our flat-free structure, if someone calls with a question after the fact, we're not nickel and diming them and sending them a bill. It's all part of the ongoing process.
Oh, that's great. So the dialogue's constantly going.
Right.
And what's the turnaround? So a family, a couple comes to meet with you. You meet at your office. Do you go to their house? How does that work? Zoom?
We're happy to do all of the above.
Okay.
A lot of times with our elderly clients, they're not quite as mobile, so we'll go to the house.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep. Yeah. And even with younger, busier families, we're happy to go to the house. Generally, we do that first free consultation, and then what we do is we prepare an outline of our recommended plan.
Okay.
If the family decides to retain us, then we work with them on preparing the drafts and kind of go back and forth on what they want in their documents. And then we would have a second meeting for a signing. So all of that can be done within the space of a week or 2 weeks, depending on the client's need.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you could turn around within a month.
Absolutely, yeah.
And let's say a standard, are you able to generally ballpark the cost of a standard will, no bells and whistles, for a family, let's say a young couple with 2 small children, not exorbitant assets, kind of a house, maybe 2 cars. If you're comfortable.
Yeah, sure. Usually with a young type of couple family like that, usually we charge a per person rate, and then what we'll do is for a couple we can reduce that. So you're looking,
great.
Yeah. So you're looking at about $2,500 for a couple as the reduced rate,
which
great.
Is it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like a month of daycare, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, yeah. So it's definitely, it's not like $100 that you can go to the penny saver.
Yeah, of course.
But you get what you pay for. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
and the will is good until death, right?
Absolutely,
It doesn't have to be revised or anything unless there's a change in the marriage or something else, or additional children come to the picture, right?
Right. Yeah. We usually say dust it off every 10 years or so, and we can take a look at it for you, or, any major life change. But if it's, the way we draft it, we put in a bunch of contingencies so you could do it now and not have to touch it again, unless you want to change anything.
That's amazing.
Yep. Yeah.
And just an aside, so Lauren helps us a lot of times where, unfortunately, whether a client passes away or a defendant in a lawsuit passes away, and the family isn't inclined to want to be involved, especially if the client doesn't have any assets, to pay the cost to do the estate work. Lauren's firm handles all that stuff for us, and they're amazing. They're prompt, they're responsive, and they get it done as efficiently as possible. I know Long Island, things move much quicker than the boroughs, but do you handle estate work in West and Nassau County, or is it just Nassau and Suffolk?
Yeah, no, we handle, the way it's set up now with the courts, everything is electronic. So I was talking to clients today who are in Orange County, up in Goshen, New York. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's up there.
Yeah, so we can do it anywhere. I'd say we predominantly practice in Nassau and Suffolk,
Right.
but we do a lot of work in the 5 boroughs for your firms. And,
yeah. Bronx,
And-
Brooklyn, Queens.
Right, yeah. And it can, as you know, it can be a real mess when people don't. Unfortunately, a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of the clients that we get from your firm, they haven't done the estate planning. And so now, I can't tell you how many times we've had a case where someone's living with their significant other and, for all intents and purposes, they're living together, but they never divorced their first spouse.
Yep.
And so the first spouse gets everything sometimes, even if they've been estranged for years because they've never finalized the divorce. And
Right.
it can get really messy, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, a lot of hard feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of annoyed relatives and children.
Absolutely right. So,
So do you have any type of interesting story or anything recently that you've come across where it's like, this is something people should really be aware of, especially when they're in our age bracket, let's say mid-20s to mid-40s?
Sure. Well, I think I started out by saying what a logistical nightmare it can be if, the surviving spouse is forced to go to court and get approval for anything. The court would appoint an attorney just for the benefit of the children, and that attorney has to oversee all the expenses, and it can just be a big mess. So that's talking about families.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're single and you're in your mid-30s, and now you don't have an estate plan. If you inherit if you, God forbid, get hit by a bus again,
Right.
and now your mom or dad is in a nursing home, all that money's going to the nursing home because they're your next of kin if you're single and you don't have children. So we've seen that happen. So I know I'm talking a lot to the young families, but bachelors are great clients for us, bachelorettes,
you got to protect your assets.
You got to protect your assets for sure.
Absolutely. And it's not taboo. I mean, I talk to my friends all the time. I'm like, you got to go to Lauren. You got to talk about your estate, your will. You have small kids, and everyone's like, it's a little weird. I don't want to talk about death.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I mean, it's a necessary thing. People got to handle it. Otherwise, the surviving spouse and the kids get stuck.
Yeah, absolutely right. And unfortunately, we have a lot of law enforcement clients, and some, it's a dangerous job.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And unfortunately, when people die on the job, and now they've got young kids, and the kids have to sign waivers saying, no, it's okay, everything goes to mom. And it can just create such heartache and such rift that doesn't need to be there if you just take the time to, properly document everything and your wishes.
Yeah. And it takes a week or two.
Right.
Week or two for the rest of your life.
Yeah. We try to make it as painless as possible, so as smooth as possible.
Absolutely. All right, Lauren, as we finish up episode 3 of the Sorce Law Podcast, is there anything you want to leave our guests with to take home with them?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing is that we don't have a crystal ball, right, when it comes to estate planning. There's just so many unforeseen things. Nobody knows when your time is up, and you want to really make sure that your assets are protected, that they're going to who you want them to go to. And we focused a lot on young families. I would say the most important asset for a young family is their children and who's going to take care of them. So that's huge, running up to elderly people. We see a lot of people where nursing homes right now cost $18,000 to $20,000 a month. That could all go in an instant if you don't have your assets protected the right way. That's where we do different types of trusts for people in that age bracket. Like once they retire, we start looking at sheltering assets, and we run the gamut because we've seen everything that can happen that's bad, from moms needing to go to court to pay for school books and get approval to sometimes people just have their pets and they don't leave proper instructions for who's going to get their beloved Fluffy. That's I'm saying it jokingly, but it's serious.
Right. Of course.
So you can do a pet trust to take care of your pets.
Right.
I mentioned bachelors and bachelorettes. Sometimes we see, a hard-earned 40-year-old's assets go down the drain to a nursing home because everything's going to mom. And even if mom did her own estate planning, now she's inheriting a chunk of money that she would have protected elsewhere.
Right.
So, we see it all. We've seen so many loved ones get into horrible fights in the hallways of hospitals. If I'm saying, no, dad wanted this, and you're saying, no, Dad wanted that. I know families who have had 2 separate funeral luncheons because they just couldn't get along.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's awful. So, we really try to get your ducks in a row. We cross your T's, we dot your I's.
Everything.
And we do everything for you. We do it. We make it as pleasant as possible. A lot of times people don't want to either pay the money or confront these morbid thoughts, right?
Got to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. You don't want to be looking down from the pearly gates and thinking, "Oh my God, what kind of dumpster fire did I create here?" Right. So, I'm happy to answer any questions. Any viewers, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach me. Best way probably is through email. My email address is my initial L, followed by my last name, Murray, Murray, at rkwclaw.com. So that's lmurray at rkwclaw.com. Or you could call me 631-265-7200, extension 108. And I'm happy to speak to anybody, especially your viewers, Joe. I got to say, a lot of personal injury attorneys get the reputation as being kind of ambulance chasers or sharks.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And Joe is just the opposite of that. He's such a nice guy. He's so fair. I've had the pleasure of working with him for years now. And
Thank you, Lauren.
Happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate the kind words. And check out Lauren. She's awesome what she does. Like I said, me and my wife used her services a couple years ago. If you're our age, I'm 38 years old. It's not taboo to figure this out and protect your kids and protect your assets. So with that, thank you for joining me on the 3rd episode of the Sorce Law Podcast. And remember, cover your assets.